Hello, everyone, to another episode of Economists Unplugged, where it's a real pleasure to welcome Dr. Kofi Britwum at the University of Delaware. Kofi also is an alumni of the Department of Agricultural Economics at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, so it's a real treat to have him join us. And Kofi, I will tell you, and I've never shared this with you, but when I first joined UNL and you were a student there, everybody used to say such great things about you. And then my colleague, Dr. Chris Gustafson, and we developed our behavioral and experimental economics class. And you were done with coursework at that time. And I distinctly remember thinking to myself, oh, I wish Kofi was in my class because it would have been such a great experience for me as well. So I really wanted to share that with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you have a really good reputation. And in fact, whenever it's been a while since graduated, and I still talk about, yeah, maybe you should talk to Kofi about this. So, well, so I don't know how many emails you are getting from students of mine, but thank you so much for your time. I know you have a really busy schedule, especially in the summer. So I thought, we could get started with you telling us a little bit about yourself and some fun facts that a fact or a couple that people don't know about.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a real pleasure and it's a real honor to be here. Kofi Britwum is my name, and I'm assistant professor in the Department of Applied Economics and Statistics at the University of Delaware. I joined EUD in 2023, so I'm almost 2 years in my position. So I do have my position is a three-way split.
Okay.
uh, which sort of encompasses all the three missions of the land-grant system, right? Research, teaching, and extension. And my research hasn't really veered off so far from where I started. I still do work at the intersection of consumer and producer behavior, not necessarily a feedback loop per se, but in my new role, my goal with research really is to try to get feedback from consumers, market feedback to producers, so that helps them, guide their decisions and um, just with their, production decisions. Um, and by way of extension, I also do some work in grain marketing and then agritourism. Um, in terms of a fun fact, um, so people may or may not know this, but I did my master's at the University of Delaware. So I'm originally from Ghana, and when I came to the US, I first came to Delaware, to the very same department that I'm in now. And then, as life would have it, I ended up back in the same department in a different capacity. And I guess another fun fact is that I tend to be very committed to things that I start. And just as an example, there's a language learning app called Duolingo that people use to learn languages. And yesterday was my 1907th day.
Awesome.
And, and I have only missed maybe about 7 times across the span of 5 years. So I'm fairly committed. Once I start something, I really kind of stay true to it.
Which language are you learning?
French.
Oh, interesting. My cousin, who is married to a French guy, wanted to learn French on Duolingo. So I'm very familiar with what being on Duolingo and being committed to, like the streak. She was really proud
Yeah,
and she was talking about the streak. And I was visiting her, and I remember one day she just realized 5 minutes before midnight that she really had to be done. And it was
absolutely.
hilarious because I could see her, like, just running up to her husband and saying, please tell me, what is this? I did this. Is this correct? I don't want to lose my streak. It is the commitment mechanism is
Yeah.
real.
It is real. And I have missed there are a few times I started like 11:55 and then they didn't count it as me doing it that day because I ended up 12:05.
Mm.
And so according to Duolingo app, I missed it. But at least I satisfy my mind that I did it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's awesome. And learning languages is hard. Uh,
Much rather at this age. But
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And it's harder, regardless of whether you are from a monolingual or a multilingual society. So it's awesome that you're doing that. And now, if you are in France, anywhere in France, you can speak the language and make the locals very, very happy.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Awesome,
At least a
awesome.
little bit to impress. Yeah.
Yeah, so my question for you is next one, what sparked your interest in, consumer behavior, behavioral economics, or, whatever you deem as your area of expertise? Was it an event, a person, or anything that sparked your interest?
So that's kind of interesting. It's serendipity. That's how I put it. I so once I accepted to join you, it's kind of interestingly, when I was writing my application, putting my application package together for grad school, I thought I was going to do something international trade, which kind of made sense, coming from Ghana and then looking at all the issues with trade and agriculture. I mean, that seemed to be like a more natural fit. So I thought I was going to do that. And then once I gained admission to UD and I committed to coming as a master's student, I started looking through faculty profiles. And then I chanced upon this faculty who had a website. So when I was reading his website, and he had said that to date, nearly all my students have been at conferences, presented at conferences, and have published papers. I'm like, who is this guy? I want to work with him. And then he happened to do consumer behavior stuff. And so I sent him an email and I didn't really know much about it. So I emailed him and said, hey, I work in a bank now. I do some marketing things. I think there's some overlap between what I do and what you do. Is there a way we could work together? And he says, well, once you get to the US, come see me. Let's talk. And that was it. So I obviously veered off from my original interest, if you would. But I started working with him. I found it fascinating, and then I have pretty much stayed true to that area, for the most part.
Fabulous, fabulous. Now is the time to maybe share with the audience, if you will, some of your experiences that you had at the Department of Agricultural Economics. Yeah, could you share with us something about your time here at UNL that may have prepared you for a professional life post graduation? Anything that you can share?
So I'm going to be as authentic as I can be with this, and maybe a little bit more personal. So I came to UNL. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Um, I thought I wanted to work with international organizations. That had been my goal. And in terms of academics and research, I thought I was just okay. I have a huge imposter syndrome, by the way.
Yes, I know.
And, and
I
so I
know.
think um, I was so privileged to have found people, professors at UNL who believed in me much more than I believed in myself. And my advisor Emmy would tell me, "Hey, you can be a good academic." And I'm like, she doesn't really know me. She just said this to flatter me. I didn't have that faith in myself. And I think in addition to just learning the rigor of the discipline, going through the theory and just the rigors of research, one of the best things that I learned in Nebraska is um, learning to believe that I could hold my own in the field of research. Um, I was completely stunned by the time that I was almost done, looking at the research that I was able to do versus when I started. And so there was tremendous growth that happened. And I think, I really had one-on-one access to different professors and they poured into me. And that has really made me who I am. And so I'm incredibly indebted to Nebraska. I could have gone to any other institution, obviously, but I think Nebraska was unique in preparing me to be who I am in this way. And I'm incredibly thankful for that. Not just, again, learning the rigors of the theory, but also learning the art of research. And I really learned that from the professors, who invested in me, who poured into me, and I'm just couldn't be more thankful for that.
Great, great. And yeah, for the audience, when Kofi talks about the imposter syndrome, yeah, it's real for him and for many others. And we laugh about it now. And I was like rolling my eyes, like I remember even I, who was not even on his committee, kept trying to convince him that Kofi, you are great. So I'm so glad that you're doing all the great things that you're doing. So, can you describe one fun project that you are working on now, with all the training that you have received and something unexpected or surprising that you've learned from it?
Hmm. So I'll give a little backstory before the project. So the Delaware General Assembly passed they call that the Consumer Milk Choice Act. And this ostensibly is to give consumers the room to purchase raw milk in Delaware, in the state of
Mhm.
Delaware. And this was signed by the then governor, Governor John Carney in Delaware. And so it's still, the Department of Ag is still kind of working through how this will look like, but it's almost going to be something that it's available for Delaware consumers. And so with my position as both, research and extension person, one of the things that we wanted to do is to do a research looking at consumer, public preferences for raw milk. And obviously, I mean, the FDA, the CDC, they warn against raw milk for obvious food safety reasons. And being in this position and doing this work, I have had the privilege of interacting with stakeholders. And something that has, I didn't see this coming is I seem to align a little bit more with the stakeholders at this point. I think it's a good product. And so here is a product that sort of sits at the intersection of being natural, but also conflictingly has a food safety concern. And I've spoken to other people, I mean, since, and there seem to be very middle ground in terms of preferences. People, or the majority of people that I've spoken to are pretty much, these are food safety concerns. Other people I've spoken with more on the stakeholder side will tout the naturalness and how
Mhm.
good raw milk is without being pasteurized. And so as a researcher doing this work, I'm like, oh, I never thought I was really going to swing a little bit to the stakeholder side. And to the extent that I actually even tried raw milk myself when I visited the farm. And I'm this tastes pretty good. And so I'm curious to see how the research unravels and what we find in terms of preferences for this. Of course, we want to sprinkle in some information in there that really mimics the real world. So have some information from stakeholders and from raw milk advocates, have information from the CDC, and then just see how that influences, if at all, the public's preferences
Mhm.
for products. So
Right.
yeah, it's again, I really enjoy. I love this project because it's something that really has an impact in the state of Delaware. Not just for producers, but also for stakeholders such as the Department of Agriculture.
I think this whatever you shared with us dovetails very nicely to my next question, which was about what is one of the most uh, to the state. What is the most impactful work you've done? And you already shared about this project. So, any other thing that you'd like the world to know in terms of some more impactful work you've done?
Sure. So I guess I would single out work that I have done with my co-author Matty Demont. Matty Demont works with International Rice Research Institute, and he and I have been doing work that has so far validated the hypothesis of cultural heritage. And the cultural heritage hypothesis simply says that, consumers who have descended from original rice domesticators, and original rice, I mean original African rice domesticators, tend to prefer local rice. Now, this is sort of fascinating because um, there has been a lot of talk in sub-Saharan Africa about import substitution when it comes to rice. We do import a lot of rice from Asia. And very often, one of the policy calls that come up is for us to grow our own type of rice, for Africans to grow their own rice, say keep that foreign exchange versus just importing lots of Asian rice. Now, what you have found through this research is that consumers are not monolithic in their preferences, even when it comes to a product like rice.
Mhm.
So we have found across different places in largely West Africa that you have consumers who descended from original African rice domesticators, either through genealogy or through geographical proximity. And these consumers, even though it's been 3,000 years ago, they still tend to prefer the same type of rice that the ancestors preferred. Now, at the same time, you also have consumers who live, mostly urban consumers or those who live along the coast in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, whose rice preferences have been shaped by, rice imports coming from Asia. So they prefer Asian rice, it's fragrant, have broken grains. And so this sort of again presents a bit of a tension here in terms of what breeders should do. Rice breeding is ongoing in several parts of West Africa and East Africa. I think the challenge here and where I believe our research is making an impact or will make an impact is that it does sort of tell breeders that just shooting for agronomic benefits in terms of the types of rice that they breed is not enough. We also have different constituents whose preferences have been shaped either by cultural heritage or colonial heritage. And so what we have proposed in our work is for breeders to be conscientious about breeding rice that mimics the characteristics of both Asian and African rice to appeal to a broad swath of consumers. And we think that that might be one way to try to achieve rice import substitution that comes from Asia. And I feel very incredibly privileged to have been a part of this work. We have done some of this work in the Gambia, in Senegal, Mauritania, and it's still ongoing. So I feel incredibly privileged to have been a part of this.
Fascinating, fascinating. And I, as an Indian from Eastern India, completely connect with what you said in terms of the cultural heritage and how that describes our rice consumption. In the US, I feel that I do not have access to the kind of rice varieties that I grew up with, and that's why I'm slotted into using basmati. I remember when my parents visited me in the US, they were shocked to see that I used basmati on a regular basis
Mm,
because they are used to using that only for special occasions and having a daily variety of rice and then having rice which they use specifically for desserts. So it's a gamut, and whatever you've shared is it's fascinating, awesome. Then moving on, in the near future, are you looking forward to learning any new skill or method or tool that you feel will help you be more successful, add to your success? We're changing gears a little bit here.
right. So because of an extension position, and one of the things that we're doing is grain marketing with
Mhm.
farmers. Um, it's an area that I wish or I'm hoping to really immerse myself in and gain more expertise. I'm not completely ignorant, so I have taught a class. Well, I have taught a chapter in a class, in an agricultural marketing class on grain marketing. So, I mean, I do know a fair amount of it, but then I realized that the practice and the teaching are not exactly the same, right? I mean, for people who actually practice grain marketing, it's a little bit more intricate. It has a lot of moving parts. And so I'm hoping that in the near future, that will be something that I really immerse myself in and learn and get a better grasp of how these different grain marketing decisions work to benefit farmers.
Mhm.
But on the research side, in terms of a tool, I'm hoping to learn something like a tool like Z-Tree. I think that will help,
O3,
market
O3, O3, O3.
with this with market simulations, right? I mean, I do a lot of, auction work, experimental auctions and I've gotten by with Qualtrics for the most part, and just using surveys, but I'm hoping to learn something, that sort of apps it up a little bit more, like using Z-Tree.
Right, right. No, the reason I said I have zero knowledge of O3, but I feel that the benefit that Z3 O3 has over Z3 is that you could deploy it over the internet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That is a fun, unless things have changed with Z3. with Z3 you need a physical lab, and I know that at UD that is not a problem.
It's
But
another, yeah,
exactly, exactly. Kofi, I do want to appreciate two things that I am taking from highlight rather. Two things that I am taking from what you're saying is one is that, when you are developing a project, working on a research project, talk to the stakeholders, whoever that might be, because you might learn things that can only enrich the project one
absolutely.
way or the other. And the other thing that I will take from you is to use your research to uniquely inform your class, because our a class can be generic, but it becomes
Mm.
unique and specific when we bring our own research into the class. And it seems like that is something that you are doing very well at UD. So that's great.
I
That's
appreciate that. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'll be teaching the class in World Food Economies in the fall. And this is, I'm like, oh, this is looking at some of the work that I have done in Africa, I could see myself picking aspects of that, integrating that into the class. And it's not just, hey, here's a bunch of theory, but this is something that has actually been done. These were the findings, and, this is how it potentially informs policy,
That's
So,
right. And I can share this with the audience that when I started teaching my own classes, I used to feel kind of hesitant about using my own work, which in hindsight feels silly because that makes the class unique, and it also for me helps me connect to the students more if I am talking a little bit about my own research as well. So I'm so glad you will be able to do that in the fall. Looking ahead in the next 10 to 15 years, in your opinion, what are the most exciting things to look forward to in your line of work?
yeah, that's okay. In the position that I'm in now, I'm an assistant professor. So natural trajectory, I'm hoping that I can achieve promotion and tenure in the next few years, however few, that might be 3, 4, 5. Um, but most importantly, other than just personal professional growth, I really want my work to be impactful. That has always been my passion. I want to do work that is meaningful in this role to stakeholders because um, part of the reason I'm here is also to help with their decision-making process. And I really want my work to aid them in that direction. Um, but at the same time, I also really, and maybe most importantly for me, I want to impart to the next generation of future economists, especially those coming from Africa and other underrepresented communities. Somebody gave me the opportunity to be here. If anybody had told me 10 years down the line, you find yourself here, I would never have believed it. But people gave me that opportunity. They trained me, they invested in me, and I really want to pass that forward, to others. And so that has always really been my dream. I think there's a lot of potential, in developing countries in Africa, and people who have lived experiences are better placed to make those changes. And I really want to be a part of that training, of those cohort of people. So that really is something on my heart, very dear to my heart. But at the same time, I'm currently also the chair for the Africa section at the AAEA National Association. And then I'm hoping that, I can take on more roles in terms of serving, the broader profession in that space. I'm not sure how that is going to be unraveled in the future, but, given my experience, I've thoroughly enjoyed being chair and all the things that, my fellow executives and I have been able to accomplish, and I'm hoping that I can be able to serve, in similar capacities, looking ahead in the future.
Right, great, fabulous, fabulous. So looking back, uh, is there any valuable piece of advice that you wish you had received, which something that you are like, I wish I knew that? Anything like that, that maybe you'd like to share with all the people the younger scholars in the profession.
And I would say that I received it and I didn't put a lot of premium on it. So I'm going to share it in the hopes that my younger self would have taken this more forcefully than, than then. So when I was in grad school, I never thought I'll end up in academia. And so anything academic related, I like, that's not my calling, that's not for me. Hey, there's a chance for for you to gain some teaching experience. That's not for me. So I think we get pretty much siloed into trying to train towards our immediate career goals. That we also forget that the academic and the um, just the work environment is consistently evolving. And so it's important for, I mean, my advice, to current students and future students, learn as much as you can, expose yourself to as much experiences as possible. If there's an opportunity to be a TA, don't say no. If there's an opportunity to work in a research other than your own, niche of research, don't say no because I never saw myself doing extension, but look at me, I'm here, working as an extension economist. And so I think it's trying to gain as much breadth of experiences in grad school other than just that narrow research focus is really important because you never know where you're going to end up in the future. And something else too that again I was told, but I didn't place a lot of premium on it. It's building a strong network of collaborators. And this is true whether you're going to find yourself in academia or in industry, because again, you never know. And, with collaborators, sometimes they open up a new version of their world to you other than you even thought about.
That's
And
right.
so I think, just even for research, for industry, I think that is incredibly important. Once when we get the chance to go to conferences, it's not just, oh, I'm just going to present and be done. You want to make an effort to get to know people, to learn what they are doing. What are the new types of work that is happening? How can you be involved if there's such an opportunity? Because again, um, there can only be wins with this and very minimal losses, if at all, other than just hard work that you put in. So I think building a strong network is incredibly vital. And I sort of knew these things. I didn't value them as much as I do now. And I'll tell my younger self that, hey, this is really important. But of course, thankfully, I kind of ended up sort of all right. And so,
Oh, I think yeah, I will say more than all right, more than all right. You're saying all the right things. Uh, Any other guidance? I know you've talked about the importance of doing different kinds of activities as a graduate student and different types of, seeking out your own professional network. Anything else um, to add to that?
um, something else I will add is, and I heard this from somebody, I think it's so true. Don't underestimate humble beginnings. Um, when I graduated from UNL, I've kind of moved around for quite a little bit more than usual, but I ended up as a postdoc. I never envisaged myself being a postdoc. I mean, again, the whole academic thing was an accident for me. I didn't think myself to be good enough to get into academic spaces. Then I find myself doing a postdoc. And then after postdoc, I took a position at a liberal arts college in Iowa, just teaching. I'm like, man, who am I? Again, but you should never underestimate small, humble beginnings because oftentimes it's preparation towards something big. The fact that you don't see beyond that horizon doesn't mean that the preparation is not valuable. So I think that is something that I would definitely want to tell people, regardless of your starting point may not nearly as matter so far as you keep being ambitious and keep trying to forge ahead. Something else that I have learned from my own experiences is that obviously, many of us work really hard. It's important to know that hard work will always be rewarding. It may not be immediately rewarding. You might apply for a job, they might reject your application, you might try to publish a paper, and then the journal might reject your paper, and you feel like you feel crushed. Am I this bad? I work so hard. Why am I getting these outcomes? And I think eventually, from my own experiences, eventually hard work will pay off. Eventually, if you don't give up. So being resilient is also a part of it. I mean, I remember, when I started publishing and then, having a few rejections and already had my imposter syndrome. So obviously, these rejections just made me feel like I knew this wasn't for me. What am I even doing here? But again, you keep pushing. There was always going to be a home for your paper at some point. You keep pushing, you keep pushing. Some, employer is going to say yes to you, and so I think, just not seeing the immediate results shouldn't be discouraging. Naturally it is. I mean, no doubt. Naturally, you get to that headspace where you struggle with your own abilities and what you feel you could do, but if you just keep knocking, I think eventually you're going to look back years later and then you realize that all the hard work paid off. It just wasn't like a very smooth, road to that successful place.
That's right. Grit is key.
Greatest key.
Grit is key. So my last question to you is that one of the goals of this conversation is to kind of help you grow your network. Not that you need my help, but so my question is: are you open to being contacted by people about just interactions, conversations? And if yes, what's the best way to do that? Should they come up to you at an AAEA meeting and say, "Hi, Kofi, I saw your interview and I wanted to have a chat," or something else?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I love to collaborate with people. I love to talk to people about what you're doing and see if, is there something else that we could do together? Especially, as an assistant professor, obviously it doesn't hurt me at all. Um, Fortunately, unfortunately, I'm very old school. I couldn't really tell you a reason, but I'm very social media shy. And so I don't do a lot of social media, but email is fine. You find me up on the University of Delaware website, just traditional email. I do keep up with emails pretty good. And so yes, that is um and if we happen to be in the same spaces, of course, I mean I love to talk to people as well. So I'll be happy.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, that brings us to the end of our conversation today. Thank you so much, Kofi, for joining us. And you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you so much. It's such a privilege and I'm truly honored. Thank you.
Awesome.